The top 5 reasons the global flood may have actually happened. Number 5, human documented history of the flood. If a global flood happened, you'd expect people around the world in ancient history to have told this story, and they do. Basically, all the people. The Chinese, the Native Americans, the Hindi people, the Sumerians, the Greek, the Aztecs, the Norse people, the story of Atlantis, and of course the biblical story, which is the account of the Jewish people. And their stories are largely similar. God or the gods were mad, and so they flooded the earth, while the hero of the story builds a boat and saved all the people and the animals. Number 4, geologic evidence of a catastrophic flood. There is evidence all over the world of unfathomably massive flooding. For centuries, science taught us that everything we see was the result of slow, steady processes over deep time, until J. Harlan Barretts took on the scientific elites and proved the Great Ice Dam flood of the Pacific Northwest. You can see the size of these small ripples that are the result of a local flood, and these pictures from the Camas Prairie in Idaho, which is in the path of this Missoula flood, has the same kind of ripples, but the scale is hundreds if not thousands of times larger. Everybody knows the Niagara Falls. This is the Horseshoe Dam, compared to the Dry Falls Formation in Washington, also part of this Missoula flood. The water at the Niagara Falls rushes over the edge at 200,000 cubic feet per second, while the water at this Dry Falls Formation ravaged through at 300 to 400 million cubic feet per second, hundreds of times more water than the Niagara Falls. Imagine the scale. And now that we know that these formations were caused by catastrophic floods, science is finding evidence of these kind of catastrophic floods all over the world, including 2 that are larger than the Missoula flood. Number 3, oceans underneath the Earth's crust. One of the first questions that comes to mind when thinking of a global flood is, where did the water come from? Which is a good question at surface level. But if you read the biblical account of Noah's flood, it's very clear where the water came from. Genesis 7:11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth. Job 38:8. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb?
Where did the water come from?
The Bible clearly says that the floodwaters came from inside of the earth, and scientists have potentially just recently found this water. They now estimate that there's more water underneath the earth's crust than above. How did the author of the Bible get this right over 3,000 years ago? Good guess, Moses. Number 2, the Ice Age. The fact that there was even an Ice Age at all provides strong evidence for a global flood. Why? We all have this idea of what the Ice Age was, the entire Earth covered in snow, but that's not the truth. The Earth was only about 4 degrees colder. However, up to 30% of the Earth was covered in ice, glaciers technically. Today, less than 5% of the Earth is covered in glaciers. So where did all the snow come from to cover 30% of the Earth? What do you need to form ice? Cold and water. If you only have cold, then you just have a cold age, not an ice age. Where did the precipitation come from? At the beginning of this last winter, Buffalo, New York experienced the most massive blizzard in its recorded history, when a lake effect storm caused 60 inches of snow to encase the city. And how did this happen? Freezing cold Arctic air moved south over the warm waters of the Great Lakes. The waters were still warm from the fall, and as the cold air passes over the warm water, it causes evaporation, precipitation. And in the Buffalo blizzard, this created a conveyor belt of snow, as the warm waters meeting the cold air caused the formation of the clouds and precipitation. And this can explain where the water for the Ice Age came from. Models show that if there was a global flood, this event would have created a tremendous amount of energy or heat, largely due to friction. This heat would have dissipated into and of course heated up the oceans, creating this lake effect phenomenon, but on a global scale. Number 1 evidence that a global flood may have actually happened, the fossil record. How is a fossil formed? When an animal dies, the scavengers almost immediately get to work on beginning the process of disassembling the formerly living thing. And this is just the beginning phase of its total decomposition, finished off by bugs, bacteria, and fungi. It's gross, but it's an amazing system for recycling organic material. Because of the efficacy of this recycling process, dead animals stand basically no chance at being preserved in any complete or articulated way. And this is why, in order for something to become a fossil, it basically needs to be rapidly buried by mud or sand, which helps to make sense of the fossils of animals that died while eating, giving birth, and that are found in death poses, arched back before being rapidly covered by mud, sometimes sand. So the very fact that fossils are found all over the earth is compelling evidence for a global, rapid animal burying event, like a flood. It also explains why marine fossils, like whales and sharks, have been found in the middle of deserts and also on the top of Mount Everest, the Himalayas, the highest mountains in the world. So what do you think? Did a global flood actually happen?